Hello, everyone, and welcome to LDM Sports Talk, the sports show that talks about sports and other topics relatable to sports fans. My name is Alfonso Caldero, and hopefully we'll have Tannenbaum coming in from Phoenix, Arizona in a little bit. We're having a bit of bit of connection issues going on, but hopefully we'll get that sorted out, and we'll get Adam on the show. Um, as we'll just start with a little bit of the NFL. So it's a big week of NFL action going on because this is officially the first half of the season is done. So this is the first week of the second half, and numerically now there's 18 weeks instead of 17 weeks. So we have a clean half and half of NFL action. So we'll take a look at we'll stay away from the local action because there's not much going on over there. Even though the New York Giants
I
had a big win. Oh,
I got
Adam, are you there?
yeah, but it only comes up on my phone.
Okay, that's great. We'll work we'll work on getting the picture going on there. But Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we'll get started. So right now we're gonna talk about we're in the NFL world, and um, so you're on the West Coast. So we'll start with one of the tightest divisions of the NFL, which is the AFC West. So right now the Los Angeles Chargers are 5-3. The Raiders are 5-3. The Kansas City Chiefs are 5-4, and the Bucks. Sorry, the Denver Broncos are 5-4. What is your take on this division and how competitive it is up and down the lineup?
This division's pretty crazy because I thought the Raiders had a good chance to win it, but then they've had all these off the field issues with their coach and their wide receiver and their corner. So I don't even know if they can keep up their momentum. They got a good team, but I just don't know if they can overcome all the off the field issues with the interim coach and all that. The Chiefs are probably the team that everyone thought would be the head dog with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey and all them, but they've stumbled out of the gates and made this more of a competitive division. And I think pretty much all three of those, I don't consider the Broncos to be a threat, but I could see the Raiders, the Chargers, or the Chiefs winning this division right now.
Yeah, it's the Raiders are definitely a big question mark with a lot of the off the field action they have. Actually, I seen a meme yesterday where they had a Grand Theft Auto looking comic thing with all of the Raiders involved, which was pretty funny. But I think the real contenders here would be the Chargers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs, if they end up making a strong second half comeback, I think that would be an epic feather in the cap of Patrick Mahomes because he has a it's been a rough year to start with, but this division is the most competitive up for grabs, and I don't see the Denver Broncos and the Raiders being able to hold the line. I think the Raiders, if they would have been able to beat the Giants last week, I think that would have been like they could have had a stronger um, foothold on the division. But now, I mean, they just basically shown that they're not as strong and formidable as they were showing in the beginning of the season, and it's going to be it's going to be an uphill battle for them as opposed to the Kansas City Chiefs, who right now are just playing with house money. Everybody thinks that they're um, down in the dumps and they're not the formidable team that they can be. But if that offense gets clicking and everybody starts rolling, that would be a very interesting sight to see. So, what do you what's your do you think the Chargers will be able to hold on and prevail against the Chiefs?
Um, I don't know if they'll be able to hold on. I think they'll be in it the whole time. But if the Chiefs get hot, I don't know if the Chargers have the staying power that the Chiefs have. I think it could ultimately come down to their second matchup because the Chargers already won the first matchup. So if they get that second matchup and have that head-to-head tiebreaker, they could steal the division. But I don't know when they play. I don't have the schedule on top of my head, but I know they have another matchup coming up. So that could go a long way to decide the division between those two.
Very to be. This is easily the most competitive division. Well, we also have the AFC North, but I think the AFC North is a different animal altogether. Now they're just four powerhouse teams that are just they have to play each other, so they're gonna end up beating each other up at certain points. And you have the Baltimore Ravens right now sitting at 6-2, the Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at 5-3, the Cleveland Browns at 5-4, and the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-4. Well, what's your take on this division?
So I was looking at the Pittsburgh schedule because they were playing Monday night the other night, and their schedule is a nightmare. They have about one more game against the Lions, I think, this week or next week, and then it's just contender after contender, and I just don't know how many of those games they're going to win. Maybe 3 or 4 more of them and end up with 9 wins. I think a team like the Browns could probably win this division, or the Ravens, depending on how their schedule looks, because I gotta think theirs is a little easier, because the Steelers is just murderers row over there.
That's definitely a strong point there. I think the I don't think we've seen the best of the Ravens. I think there's still another level that they can hit, even being at 6-2. And I think this is the time where Lamar Jackson ends up being the quarterback that everybody thinks that, like, he hasn't even hit his top potential yet, and I think this is the year that he does it. I think he took his licks in the last 2 playoff series at a very young age, and now there's a light perception out there that he's a playoff choker, and I think now when the big games come out, he's gonna win them, and I think that once they get into the playoffs, they're gonna be a force, and they're gonna I'd say that they would be like my uh, Super Bowl favorite going in from representing the AFC.
Yeah, I could totally see that. The AFC is wide open right now as far as everybody that's a contender. I would say maybe the Titans would be the favorite, but after that, you can make a case for a number 2 easily.
Absolutely, I think the Titans, which we'll get into that division in a second. They took the hit with Derrick Henry, but then they ended up winning last week. So, but then again, earlier in the season, they ended up losing to the Jets. So there's a lot of ups and downs with that team. They're either, it seems like they're just really really good, or not all that great, and it's just without Derrick Henry, that just changes the whole scope of that entire team. So just finish it up. Could we be happy for the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals, especially their fans? I mean, they finally have competitive teams. Unfortunately, they have competitive teams in the same years that the rest of the division does. So it's going to be a formidable uphill battle for both of those teams. But how happy could we be for those teams and their fan bases?
I think there's a lot to be excited about for those teams. They both got really good quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, probably the best quarterback they've ever had, which in Brown's history doesn't say much, but he's a stabilizer. He gets the job done. He makes his throws. The run game's really good. The offensive line's really good. They beefed up their defense, so they got a team over there. And then the Bengals got Joe Burrow, who won a national championship at LSU, and he's all that and everything too. He's a winner. So I think those two teams are definitely headed in the right direction. Pittsburgh's just holding on for dear life here. They got the old man Roethlisberger, and with the 3 youngsters in the division, they might be on their last legs here.
Yeah, this is the window is closing on the Pittsburgh Steelers, definitely. Yeah, so you mentioned the 2 great young quarterbacks on their teams, and these are actual big time quarterbacks that came in with the big chips on their shoulders, and they're actually producing, which is fantastic. We've seen across the league where the younger quarterbacks, which unfortunately I think they're getting thrusted into action too early, and I think a lot of the the working against, like, the failures that they've had is coming from the inexperience and being thrusted in these positions a little too early. The years of in past years where the first year QB like holds the clipboard while the veteran quarterback kind of shows them the ropes, or either they do that or they just groom them to try to get better and then actually get ready for game action. Like all these rookies, like basically if you're drafted in the first round, you're expected to be a starter on day one, regardless of the position. But when you have the quarterback position where you have to learn the entire playbook and learn the calling the audibles and everything. I think it's just too much, and it's too much to ask of really anybody. But these two quarterbacks have, they've weathered the storms, and Barrow's coming back from the injury, and he's being successful right now, and that's the. It's kudos to them, but I think overall it's really hard to have these rookies come in and perform at top level from day one.
Totally agree.
All right, so we'll head it to the AFC North now, where we have the Tennessee Titans at 7-2, and the Colts. They had a very very impressive Thursday night showing against the New York Jets, where they just ran all over them. I'd say they went for like, what was it, like 250 yards on the ground. Um, and it's the weird part about that was the week before Carson Wentz ended up passing 52 times, and they ended up um, not prevailing against the Tennessee Titans. So it was like they just flipped the script and just decided to just run all over the Jets. Do you think that the Colts can be contenders for the AFC wild card? I can imagine they get the Titans unless the Titans end up making a dive at some point.
Yeah, I think they're definitely a contender for the wild card. The Titans will probably run away with the division as long as they could just stay relatively healthy overall. I know Derrick Henry's out, but they should be fine otherwise. Their defense is phenomenal, as you saw against the Rams. The Colts are right there. I think they're have a spot or they're a game out of the spot of the wild card. So they're right. They're right there. I see them as an 8-9, maybe 10 win team if they get an upset or two.
All right. So now we'll take a look at the AFC East, where we have the. This is all right. So now that this was supposed to be the year of the Patriots falling, and they're gonna fall into shambles. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are 5-3. It took a really tough loss last week. Then we have the against the Jaguars of all teams. They only scored 6 points. The game was 9-6. That was I think last week was a lot of shockers, but that was the biggest shocker for everybody. We got the Bills at 5-3, the Patriots at 5-4, and then the Jets and Dolphins fighting for mediocrity. So let's focus on the Patriots now, and how are they successful this season?
Patriots got that ground game going and the defense. That's their bread and butter. So you can replace a Tom Brady. How do you do that? You don't, but you do it. You go to your strengths. So they got a three-headed monster at running back with J.J. Taylor, Ramon Stevenson, and Damian Harris. They've been running the ball pretty well and staying in games against contenders like the Cowboys and the Bucks, and they got a big one this week against the Browns, who are right there in the wild card with them. And then everybody knows how Belichick can coach up the defense. So if you could stay in the game, run the ball, and your quarterback makes some throws, you can win ball games.
Yeah, it's been very impressive seeing what the Patriots have been able to do. I mean, when you look at the eye test of the schedule, you would think right now they should be fighting, with the Jets and the Dolphins for the bottom slot. But they're a half game out of the first place, which is their normal customary position for the past 15, 20 years. The Buffalo Bills, do you think they'll be able to become the Super Bowl contenders that they were perceived to be after the in the first half of the season with what they've shown?
I gotta think so. They're just stumbling a little bit right now, but they got some easy games coming up here. I don't exactly remember who they play this week, but I know someone said they have a bye month or something like that, and then they lose the Jaguars of all teams. But I think that's the wake up call that they probably needed. That they got to play a little better. I know Josh Allen didn't have the greatest of games last week, so I expect whoever they play this week, I expect them to win big, because every team, even if you're a contender or not, will have an off week, and that's sometimes you need that wake up call before you rip off 6 in a row.
Yeah, I personally thought, and I stated on the show on in earlier weeks, that the Patriots, the Buffalo Bills, and the Miami Dolphins would be fighting for first place in this position. The Dolphins just absolutely took a dive.
Yeah, I did not expect that at all.
So now we have the Patriots going for the number one slot. I think they're going to do it just because Bill Belichick is just the man. You can't really deny the fact that he's just one of, if not the greatest coach of all time, and he's been able to work wonders with position players that while they were working under him were fantastic, and then they went elsewhere and they weren't all that great, with the exception of Tom Brady, who's just the man in himself. But it's very uh, from an objective standpoint, it's fun to see them being successful without having without having like a top-notch quarterback, and just basically figuring it out. Because last year they stumbled a bit, and it was a tough year. I think I'd say easily they had the most COVID absentees, because there was I was like what, like almost like $40 million worth of defensive players that ended up sitting out because of the COVID, and they ended up, taking a dive last year. But now, that they're in a firm position to overtake the Bills, and I think they eventually will. All right, so we're gonna take a look now at the NFC West, which is a very top-heavy division with the Arizona Cardinals at 8-1, the Los Angeles Rams at 7-2, and the rest of the division at 3-5. How serious are the Arizona Cardinals right now, and how serious are the Rams right now?
I gotta think both those teams are pretty serious. I think it will go down to the wire with those two. The Cardinals got a slight favor because of they have the slightly easier schedule because they finished lower last year, and they already beat the Rams at home in week 5 or 6 or whatever it was. All you need to do is win both games head to head, and the division's pretty much yours, because that's basically a 2-game swing, because you can't, even if you're tied for the division, you still got the tiebreaker. So the Rams will have to figure out a way to win 2 more games than the Cardinals, or they got to win that head to head game as well.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I think the Cardinals are more surprising, but I guess it's just from the years and years and years of mediocrity that they've had. It seems like Murray is the real deal at quarterback, and they added a bunch of weapons. They made the midseason trade for Ertz, the tight end, which is fantastic. And now, just earlier today, the Rams announced that they signed Odell Beckham Jr., which is definitely a plus on their wide receiver end. Let's take a look at the OBJ. How do they improve on this? And do you think that it would be the New York Giants OBJ that ends up playing for the Rams, or the Browns OBJ?
Uh, I'd say somewhere in between there. I don't think he'll ever be the New York guy again. I just think he's older, and the league's figured him out maybe a little. He's just not that guy anymore. But I don't think he's going to be the distraction that people think he's going to be. The Rams do really well with their distractions. Everybody thought when Jalen Ramsey came over from the Jaguars, he was the big mouth guy, and you don't even hear nobody even hears much of his mouth anymore. He's quieted down. When you move to a city like Los Angeles, you're just one person in thousands and millions of stars. You're just one guy. When you're in Cleveland, you could be the man. Just ask LeBron.
Definitely. So I'm going to say that I think this is going to be similar to the Randy Moss situation, where, he was a stud with the Vikings, and then he ended up being with the Raiders, and the Raiders didn't work out. It seemed like he was, it was the end of the line, and then he ends up going to the Patriots, and then he was just, breaking records. I think this is going to be one of those situations where, I mean, OBJ's got to be like, with his injury history, and the way it really didn't work out in Cleveland, I'd have to venture to say that he never wanted to be in Cleveland in the first place, and that's definitely not a place that seems open to his personality, what he gives. I gotta say that he's gonna go to LA. He's gonna have right now he has something to prove, because everybody thinks that he's not the man anymore. And I think he's gonna take that opportunity, seize it, and be fantastic for the team. And that it's only gonna add to their depth. And Matthew Stafford himself showed that he's the man. And you never hear any like kind of elite or super or Hall of Fame talk when it comes to Matthew Stafford, but he puts up numbers year after year. And now that he's actually on a competitive team, he's showing exactly how great he is. And it's just another weapon in his arsenal.
Totally agree with that. And Stafford's really good at throwing the deep ball, which is exactly what Odell didn't like in Cleveland because Baker won't throw it deep as much and likes to target Jarvis Landry a lot. I know the Rams have Cooper Kupp, who's I think the NFL leading receiver right now, a little bit over 1,000 yards. So if they can get both those two, on the edges, running deep routes, good luck defense.
Yeah, for real. So, all right, so we'll take we're gonna skip around a little bit more. So, Dallas right now, the NFC East actually looks like a formidable team as opposed to last year. Do you think anybody catches them, or they run away with this division?
They'll run away that division by Thanksgiving. I think they'll have it done.
Yeah, it's good. That's gonna. But the New York Giants, we talked last week, and they actually proved it with beating the Raiders. You know that they're a couple of breaks away from having a winning record. I think that the second half is going to be a big test for them if they're going to actually be able to pull it together and be formidable enough to make a playoff spot. Uh, the NFC seems to be much more wide open when it comes to wild card as opposed to the AFC, which right now you could pretty much probably say what 7 teams are going to make the playoffs from the AFC. NFC is still wide open as far as the bottom half goes of the playoffs. So I expect the Giants to make a charge there and seize more of their opportunities that they've lost early in the season. Then we have the NFC North, where the Packers are 7-2. They get Aaron Rodgers back this week, and the rest of the division's mediocrity. Does anybody come out of and challenge the Packers, or are they running away with this?
The only hope anybody has as far as that division is if Rodgers somehow misses another game because of the COVID situation. But other than that, it's nobody's close. The Vikings are too up and down. The Bears aren't there yet. They do have a good quarterback. He showed something against the Steelers. They might have something there for the first time in forever. And the Lions are the Lions. There's nothing to be said there.
Yeah, so are the Lions going to win a game this year?
They'll win a game. I don't know if I could say they'll win 2 games. They're kind of in the same spot as the Jets were last year. They'll sneak up on someone late in the year.
Absolutely. So, all right. And then we finish up with the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 6-2. The Steelers at 5-3, and the rest of the division is are swimming around 500. Do the Buccaneers end up holding on, or do the Saints end up trying to make that happen?
Yeah, the Buccaneers should be fine as long as Tom Brady's Tom Brady and healthy. I see no reason why they're not going to win 12, 13 games this year. The Saints and the Falcons. The Falcons are surprised like 4-4. I did not see that happening. They were like 0-3 to start, and they somehow caught up to 4-4. The Saints and Falcons will probably compete for wild cards because there's just nothing. There's just nothing there in the NFC as far as teams. You got the Vikings and Bears. They're not doing anything. The Panthers just lost their quarterback. The Falcons. They got a new coach, and he likes to run the ball. That seems to be their new strategy: is keep the ball out of Matt Ryan's hands and running and actually playing decent defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna say the Buccaneers definitely hold on. Unless Tom Brady goes down with an injury, then that would be something radically crazy. But that doesn't seem to happen. He seems to be an ox, as far as health goes, which is kudos to him, being 42, 43 years old, still being the man. And no controversy this time, all right,
no doubt about that.
all right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk some basketball. We don't talk enough basketball on this show. So we have a Lakers fan in the house, which is fantastic, representing on the West Coast. So what do you see from the Lakers right now? They're seventh. That's at 7-5. I know. Sounds like Russell Westbrook is not having a smooth transition. What do you see from the Lakers, and how soon do they figure it out and become formidable?
The Lakers got to get their injury situation figured out because I know LeBron's got a abdominal injury, and they've missed some other key pieces they had in the offseason, like Kendrick Nunn they got from Miami, and Ariza has been out all year. Taylor Horton Tucker, who they're really high on, a young kid, he's been out all year. So they're missing their guards they thought they would have. LeBron's not a guard, but he handles the ball a lot. So that's put Russell Westbrook having the ball a lot, which is good when he's good, and when he's not, it's not. You have Russell Westbrook who will give you a triple-double almost every game, but you don't want that triple-double to turn into quadruple-double of turnovers.
Yeah, which actually happened one time this season. So do you think he ends up figuring it out and they end up being the formidable team that everybody thought they would be beforehand?
I think if they get healthy, there's a lot of talent on that team. Carmelo's playing amazing. Anthony Davis is great. They have enough talent to get into the top four in the Western Conference and make the playoffs. I think their whole season comes down just like last season to health. They have older veterans, guys that have been around. You got to stay healthy. The best availability is your availability. It's like you have to be eligible for your team. You can't be on the sidelines in street clothes. You just can't. Anthony Davis, that team will only go as far as Anthony Davis and LeBron stay healthy.
Absolutely agree with that. And how awesome has Carmelo Anthony been as a Los Angeles Laker?
He's been great. I didn't even know he could shoot this well. I think he was shooting like 70% from 3 pointer one game. I was like, this is amazing. Some dudes just love the bright lights of Los Angeles, and some crack under it. And he's definitely shining through.
Yeah, I'm personally happy for him being a New York Knicks fan, and I'm hoping that he ends up uh, having a deep playoff run. Hopefully, get that championship that he's looking for. But uh, in the early going, we have the Golden State Warriors are 10-1. They've definitely made a comeback.
Yep, the Golden State Warriors are healthy. They've been bad for a couple years. They got some young pieces. They got Jordan Poole and Looney and healthy Curry that's playing amazing. And just wait until they got Klay Thompson coming back off injury. If he's anything like he used to be, watch out for that team.
Yeah, that's the big that's the big question mark. I saw a piece where they were comparing, who's a better shooter between Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Which the one thing I see is like Klay Thompson hasn't been available for 2 years already, and this is going on year three. So health and being available street clothes is a big deal. So you got to be out there if you're going to be on the team. So that one aspect right there. Steph Curry's been available more, and I think what they've benefited from as a team is the same way the Spurs got Tim Duncan way back in the day when David Robinson went down, and then they were just an awful team, and then they ended up getting the first round pick, which ended up being Tim Duncan, and they received David Robinson ended up becoming healthy. So you basically got two superstars that offseason for the price of one, and they just then the rest was history. They made their little every other year kind of dynasty thing going on there, and that's what the Warriors have put themselves in position now to have happen, and it's working out for them in this early season. And Klay
Absolutely.
Thompson's not even back yet.
Nope.
So then we have the Jazz and the Suns picking up from last year for the most part. Any other surprises? Clippers 7-4. The Grizzlies seem to be doing well. Ja Morant seems to be making a hard push for an All-Star berth, which it looks like he's going to get.
No real surprises in the West, but I did have a comment on the Pelicans. I think I looked at their 1-11, and Zion hasn't played a game yet. That's got to be pretty bad over there because we know Anthony Davis was on that team 3 years ago, and he went to the Lakers after being upset there. Zion hasn't signed his contract. He's going to be up in a couple of years. You got to be able to put a team around your superstar. You're just gonna run into the same issue again.
Yeah, absolutely. Them and Houston are at the super bottom of the barrel. Houston's a 1-10, and the Pelicans are one. Yeah, I mean the I he's already signed his way out, and then the overweight issue. It seems he's
Mm-hmm.
well over 300 pounds and hasn't played a game yet. You think anything coincides with each other on on those aspects?
Uh, yeah, it probably does. I don't think anything's right there. He's it's something's wrong in that organization right now, and they need to fix it. That situation is not quite as bad as the Philly situation with Ben Simmons, but it could get there.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough road coming up for them. But I'm looking at it. All right, so the NBA has they're carrying over their COVID playoff system, which they actually had last year as well. where the 7 and 10 seeds are going to go. So basically, there's going to be 10 playoff teams, and the 7 through 10 seeds are going to be duking it out for uh, basically wild card style to get into the full 18 playoffs. We're looking at the Kings right now that are in there. Do you think they end up staying in there or they end up dropping off?
That's a tough one. The Kings like to do the early season push and then just completely fall off. I did see them live a couple weeks ago, and I did like their roster. They got Buddy Hield, who was subject to trade rumors. They kept him. Harrison Barnes is playing really well. They got Davian Mitchell from Baylor. That's pretty good. And then they got their superstar duo of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. They got some good pieces there. If they could ever complete a rebuild, they always seem like they're close, and then someone wants out or they want to trade somebody.
Yeah. Well, do you think they end up making a big trade at the midseason and make a big push for a superstar?
No, I don't see them doing anything crazy. I think they're just in the early stages of their rebuild, maybe year 3 of 5 or something like that. They wanted to see their core grow together. I think they're a fast young team that plays really well together, but I don't see them doing anything more than maybe like you said, a 9 or 10 seed.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see them. They have the longest playoff drought of anybody. So it would be great for them to finally make the playoffs. I think it was like 2006. I think it was the last time they made the playoffs. So it was just that they had the longest NBA team without a playoff appearance. So it would be good for them to burst that bubble. And now we're looking at the Eastern Conference, which is tons of surprises on this side. Right now we have Washington and the Chicago Bulls at both at 8-3. What are your thoughts on how that came about, and do you think either one of them are the real deal?
I think the Bulls are really good. That's the one I'm not too shocked about because of their offseason moves with getting Lonzo Ball in there, DeMar DeRozan, and adding Caruso from the Lakers, who's really good at defense. They already had the pieces last year when they had Nikola Vucevic and um, what's the other guy's name? I can't think of his name at the moment. But they have a really good nucleus of a core group there. I think they'll be good. The Wizards, I'm not entirely sure. They're relying on some ex-Lakers like Montrezl Harrell and Contavious Caldwell Pope and Kuzma. But every Laker fan, every NBA fan knows how inconsistent a guy like Kuzma can be. I did like how they got Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets. He's healthy for off an ACL tear, and he looks good. I don't see themselves being a top team, but I definitely think they're a playoff team.
Yeah, it's just I'm looking at it from a perspective of these guys were very open on feeling disrespected for the trade that ended up happening. A lot of sour grapes getting thrown around back and forth. Possibly this is young players that have chips on their shoulders that they've matured on the fly and they're all about their business. So we'll see if this carries on throughout the rest of the season. But this might have been the turning needed personally to be able to get. They all had potential. That's why they were drafted so high, and that they ended up showing flashes here and there, but just not enough consistency. Maybe this is the catapult that leads them to successful careers. Do you think either one of those three are able to sustain their success, or do you think some of them are going to just uh, uh, fall out?
I think they're a good team. I think they'll be fine. I just don't see them as a top dog. I think they're a good team.
Yeah, it's very early in the season. We have the Nets and the Sixers doing pretty well. Miami's looking pretty formidable, and locally as on top of the Brooklyn Nets, which is it's expected. Even though they don't have the services of Kyrie Irving at this point, they still have a pretty formidable lineup, and LaMarcus Aldridge is turning back the clock and doing well. With story after his brief retirement, which it's a fantastic tale there. And then you have the New York Knicks that are looking pretty formidable at times, but also fallen short in a couple of games at 7-5. Do you think the Knicks end up being formidable at this point and taking their division, or are they just uh, middle of the pack of the East?
Uh, the Knicks will be a 4 or 5 seed. They'll be in the mix. I think the early thing is the East is no joke anymore. That the early thing was it's like the Cavs or whoever team LeBron's on and maybe one other team, and then it's nothing. It's not like that anymore. The East goes about 10 deep at this point. You have a team like Boston that's used to being real good, and they might not even make the playoffs or end up in the play-in game. They're not. You got to come up with your A game in the East. But I think the Knicks have good enough structure with Thibodeau and Randall playing amazing and R.J. Barrett coming into his own. I think the Knicks have a lot of staying power there.
Yeah, right now we have the Boston Celtics starting the season at 5-6, and the Hawks at 4-8, and they're on the outside looking in. I think those are definitely the biggest surprises of this early season, and the Cavs, the Cavaliers, who just signed pretty much every tall guy they could, and now they're sitting at 7-5. So the size,
What was that?
the beefed up side working for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're like easily the tallest team. I think they signed like, what was it, like four 7-foot guys or 6'11" and up.
Yeah, they brought in Laurie Markkinen. They drafted Evan Mobley from USC, and then they had Jared Allen from the trade last year with the James Harden deal, where they were able to get Jared Allen. They got a pretty good roster. No, I don't know if I'll go as far as a playoff roster, but they're not the team that you want to say, oh, it's the Cavs. We could take the night off. I wouldn't recommend that. They got some good players up front. They got Darius Garland and Colin Sexton in the back. They'll be a tough team to play most nights. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but they're not the team that you're gonna want to take lightly.
All right. So yeah, we're basically in the we finished up 1/8 of the season of the NBA, so it's still a really long way to go. But I think it's exciting, and there's a lot of parity going up and down the lineup when you look at it. Aside from the Warriors, but it's still early on, and I think it's a fantastic early season basketball wise, where a lot of teams are in it, a lot of fan bases are excited, and it's just great for the league.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got a couple minutes left in the show. We're gonna skip around some NHL here. So uh, week the Panthers played the Hurricanes, and the Panthers ended up winning in regulation, which gave the Hurricanes their first loss. The Hurricanes are now 10-1, and then a couple nights later, the New York Rangers end up facing the Florida Panthers in New York, and surprisingly beat them after getting having a very very rough Western Canada, where they ended up blowing the New York Rangers ended up blowing two third period leads, and then in the last game they ended up getting absolutely smoked 6-zip by the Calgary Flames. So what do you make of that whole scenario, and what do you think the Panthers and the Hurricanes are serious contenders heading into um, regular season?
I think they're both good contenders. I may be a little more down on the Panthers because of the whole firing their coach because of the Blackhawks scandal with Quenneville. I think he was a really good coach for them, but obviously being a piece of shit person is not like what you need on your hockey team. So I don't know if the interim could keep up the momentum. They have a lot of good players with Barkov and Huberdeau and Ekblad, and Bobrovsky is one of the best goalies in the league when he wants to be, and they got a youngster and Spencer Knight right behind him that's gonna push for his job. They got the pieces. I think I like Carolina a little bit more because they've been in the playoffs. They've won playoff series. They're right there. They gave Tampa everything they had. I think they lost in 6 or something like that. They've been up against good teams in the playoffs. They're right there. I think they made an Eastern Conference Finals about 2 years ago. They're right there, ready to make the next step if someone can knock off Tampa Bay in the East.
Yeah, well, the Tampa Bay seems to be stumbling out the gate a little bit in mediocrity. They ended up losing Nikita Kucherov again, which is a devastating blow to them. So we have the Boston Bruins on the outside looking in the Atlantic Division at 12 points. Detroit surprisingly is up there with riding the success of Raymond and Spurts. Is it? The star young defenseman. Do you see Detroit end up staying in the pack, or do you see them dropping off? Do you, do you think this is finally the year where the Red Wings are resurgent and make the playoffs?
No, not quite yet, but I do think their fans should be happy about their youngsters and even a player that's been around for a little bit but not quite youngster and Bertuzzi and Larkin. Those guys aren't too old yet. I think there's a lot to be happy there. They found a pretty good goaltender from Carolina that they gave up in Nedeljkovic. Uh, they'll be pretty good in the early going, but I just think there's too much talent in that Atlantic division with Boston and Tampa Bay and Toronto for them, and the wild card is probably going to be the last five Metro teams after the top three make it.
So I'd have to say it's definitely back to being exciting times for Detroit. It looked like for years it looked like they didn't even have a farm system and they were awful. So and then you hear a lot of Detroit fans that were upset with their draft positioning because they didn't get number one and such like that. Now look at the blessing of it. You know that they drafted Raymond at 4, and then they drafted Spurts at 6, and now they're doing better than the number 1 and 2 picks respectively of those drafts, which was Capo Caco and where like they were the two Rangers have 4 and later on have like 9. So sometimes unlucky then.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
All right,
Yeah,
so we'll take
they
a
got
look
some
at
good
the
pieces, but
Western
they're a little
Conference
early.
now. So the aforementioned Calgary Flames, I think they're the biggest surprise of the Western Conference. Do you think they're able to sustain their success? And they're getting red hot goaltending by Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah, the Calgary is always a story of they're always up and down in their team, but I think for the first time in a while, Markstrom is definitely one of the best goaltenders they've had in the last 7-8 years or so since they had Kippersoft. Uh, they have a pretty good team. Gaudreau's Gaudreau, Kachuk. Monahan's a little bit on the downswing. They lost Giordano to Seattle. I didn't expect them to get rid of that guy, but I guess they considered his contract to be too big and they wanted to go in other ways. But I think Calgary will be in the mix for the Pacific. The Pacific is not as talented as the other divisions. They have some young teams that who knows if they're going to stay all year. They're good now, but who knows come March and April.
Absolutely, the Oilers are starting off pretty well, which is it's good for them, especially having 2 perennial Hart Trophy candidates every year. So it's like it always defied logic. I think the way the Edmonton Oilers weren't better than they should be, and now they're even making Mikko Koskinen look really really great as a goaltender because they're just offensively pounding everybody.
Right. That's the Oilers' MO right there. They're like the old Phoenix Suns with Nash and Stoudemire, the run and gun type stuff. They just don't play enough defense when it comes down to it in the playoffs. Edmonton will for sure be a playoff team. The only question for them is how far, because they just haven't figured it all out. But if they ever do, watch out.
Yeah, if there's, I mean, Toronto. I think Toronto gets the brunt of the jokes when it comes to choking and things like that. But the Edmonton Oilers are definitely up there with having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the same team on the same line some nights, and they definitely need to start producing in the playoffs and have deep playoff runs.
Absolutely.
So then we have the Anaheim Ducks. So what do you think about them? That seems like they're doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, they've surprised me a lot here. I didn't expect them to be this good this early. I thought maybe they're another year away, but maybe they'll stay in it this year and maybe compete for a wild card spot or maybe even the division, maybe a bottom spot in the division. It just really depends on how well some of these pieces can stay. The big name right now is Troy Terry. He's got like I think a 12-game point streak, the longest in the league. Like, who saw that? No Ducks fan, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it's definitely great coming out of Anaheim, and they're leading from the three California teams. I'd say John Gibson's always been a great goaltender. It seems like he's getting more help this year, especially offensively, which is great for that team. And they always talked about the young farm system and the pieces that are coming, and now that they're growing, it's great to see that team moving forward and surprising most, which especially me. I definitely did not see that coming. So, all right, so we'll just talk about the West real quick. You have 2 minutes left in the show. So the Minnesota Wild are leading right now. Then we have the Blues, the Jets, the Predators, the Dallas, and Colorado only has 9 points right now because they're just ravaged by injuries. What surprises do you see in this division?
I don't think I'm too shocked, but I think Dallas should be a little worried right now because this is another year of them stumbling out of the gate. They stumbled out last year. I think they were one of the lower teams and they had a COVID issue. They don't have any issue this year and they're still stumbling. So they need to start winning some games, or their window for winning, because they went to the Cup about 2 years ago. Their window might be closing real fast here. The Wild are the team that people will write off every year, but they just keep coming. They got Cam Talbot in net. They got Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Zuccarello. Some Ryan Suter led, but they still got Matt Dumba on the back end, and they're just a good team with some good coaching, and people want to write them off, but they could win that division if they keep it up.
Absolutely. All right, so that does it for our show this week. Thank you very much, Adam, for joining us and representing the West Coast for the first time ever on this show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be back next week. My name is Alfonso Caldera, LDM Sport Talk.